down to fill us in on what's going on, and based on what I've observed, you probably got some good news and some bad news. Is that right?
We're going to try to muster up some good.
Okay, good. All right, and they flipped a coin, and I guess Representative Luck gets to go first this time.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's wonderful to be back in my home county, so thanks for coming out this morning. We are almost on day 60 of our 120 days, so that means we're almost halfway through, praise God. We are, I think, over the 400 bill mark right now in terms of the number of bills that have been introduced, and you will note that last night, the assault weapons ban bill was introduced into the House, and so we now have 5 Second Amendment related bills on the docket, 2 that will be heard first in the House and 3 that will be heard in the Senate, and we can talk more fully about that if you'd like. Good news, at least I think for our rural communities. I got the delineator post bill that I shared with you all last time passed out of committee on a unanimous vote. I also have found myself a Democrat to co-prime that bill and help channel it through the system, and so I think we are going to see that be successful, and that will help all of our agricultural equipment and oversized loads have a better time on our highway system because of the way that the delineator posts are put on 2-lane highways. So I'm excited about that. This coming week, I will be presenting a bill on doing a study of the family courts, and so I had shared a little bit about that with you guys last time, but the idea being what is going on in our family court system, because there's so many different stories coming out that are just devastating, and so to see, do we need to change different statutory requirements? Are there things that should be done in order to eliminate some of the brokenness that is caused by the family court process, it seems. So that will be in committee this week. Other good news, I'm not sure, I'll think about it. But in the meantime, last time I was here, I shared with you a little bit about the process of getting a bill and all of those different stages of getting a bill from an idea to the governor's desk. Well, today I am going to talk to you guys about fiscal notes. I think it's important that you guys understand some of these dynamics. And so if you go on to the General Assembly's website and you find a bill that is of interest to you, you go on that bill's page, there'll be some written summary that's actually on the text of the website. But then at the bottom of that summary, there are often, not always, but there are often 2 buttons. And one will say View Bill Text, and that's where you can actually pull up the PDF that is the language for the bill. But the other button is the fiscal note. And the fiscal note is really important because it tells you how much it's going to cost the taxpayers to do that particular program. And so I encourage you, if you're looking at a matter, especially if you want to testify on something, don't just look at the bill, also look at the fiscal note. It will tell you the impact to the state budget, it'll tell you the impact to your Tabor refunds, it'll tell you a likely impact to local governments and to other entities, and so it's an important piece of information. It also often tells you a little bit more about the context surrounding the underlying bill. And so just so you guys have some of that information to better assist you as you navigate the legislative process and let us know where you are on bills, I share that. And then I'll just hand it over to Senator Baisley and be open to whatever questions.
So, thank you, Representative Luck, and good to see everybody. Thanks for coming to gather and let's talk. First of all, I want to compliment whoever came up with the smart idea of warning in the men's room to not spit chewing tobacco into the urinals. I think that is just really wise, and I've never seen that before or anywhere else. But that's good. So on the good news front, so I am getting one of my bills. Actually, looks like 3 of my bills are going through the system, the process. Okay, one's kind of stalling out, and I'm trying to nudge it along, but one is of minor consequence to you guys. It has to do with length of terms. You can hire a university professor but important to the university. But that's on its way to the governor for a signature. The one of consequence, though, has to do with the valuation of property taxes, as I think we might have talked about last month. On the June 30 of even years is the date pegged for valuation of our properties towards taxation, and that's across the state. So we just hit that, peak right then. And in fact, I just saw a headline on Friday's Denver Post about how much farther down the valuations of properties have come, and it's some record-setting fall, like 1.5% or something like that within a short period of time. So it's just an unfortunate spot when it comes to how much we're all going to be asked for from our counties. Excuse me. Still dealing with the residual that everybody, by the way, in the state legislature is doing that. Excuse me. So there's a lot of that going around. The bill, my Senate Bill 108, is to ensure that the counties can give relief on other mill levies to try to compromise and compensate for the windfall of revenue that'll be generated from property taxes based on this high valuation, which could be, they say, up as high as 26% jump from previous year. So it's gonna be quite a shock. So the concern was, can we take a vacation temporarily on other mill levies and then put this, can we reinstitute that mill levy a year or two later without going back to the people and asking them permission, because Taxpayer Bill of Rights says you have to ask the people before you raise any taxes. So this is to clarify that so that you can have that vacation. A lot of counties said, we do that kind of routinely anyway, but others were concerned. So anyway, so that's a success that I think is going to be good, just at least to give comfort. The goofy stuff, and there's plenty of that, but I thought I'd talk about a couple of bills that are emblematic of the culture that we see. And it's an advancing culture, of course, from the left that dominates under the Golden Dome. And it's a language that you don't normally hear, like chewing tobacco, in certain places, you don't want to hear. It's a whole different language. There's a constant consideration in every bill that comes up. What are the impacts on race, and what's the impact on I'll say deviant sex? It's odd, and in fact, I'm hoping that Representative Luck will talk about the amendments that she and others, excuse me, in the House proposed for recognition of the Equal Rights Amendment anniversary this past week, because they did some pretty amazing stuff in advancing some clarifications and proper recognition, while the other side was taking this recognition of women's rights and turned it into a whole nother bunch of odd stuff that they just can't help themselves from doing. So real fast, the two bills that I wanted to mention, one that had to do with funding of technology for community colleges. So that comes before me and others who are on the Joint Technology Committee, and the universities and the colleges will come and say, we need for bandwidth, for Wi-Fi for our students, and so on. Well, it was the University of Denver, it's University of Colorado at Denver, that was asking for some more bandwidth and talking about how it's going to affect the student body. And they said, so here's the racial breakdown. And I'm thinking, how is that relevant? And when they were giving the racial breakdown, it was something like, 18% black and 56% Hispanic, and so on. And then she talked about the minoritized population. Anybody heard that term, minoritized? Me either. I had to ask, I go, so what is minoritized? And she goes, oh, well, we normally would be talking about the minorities, but since what traditional minorities are actually the majority, we still want to talk about them in terms of being minoritized. In other words, to being disadvantaged, even though they're in the majority. And you're like, why do you think this way? That's how it's like, it's a constant discussion of race and sexual orientation stuff. So just odd. And you don't hear that anywhere else in the world, but you sure hear about it all the time there. Another bill that I want to mention was, well, I'll talk about the weapons, assault weapons ban bill. So of the 5, the one that's going to cause the greatest amount of ruckus, I believe, is coming into being introduced in the House. It just got introduced in the House, and that's the assault weapons ban. And it starts out talking about the exceptions to this bill. So they're going to describe what an assault weapon is and how you can't own one or you can't resell one and so on. But the exceptions they give they start out with law enforcement, military, and so on, that would be an exception to these restrictions. Now think about that for a moment. What is the purpose of the Second Amendment? They didn't start out saying, hey, we'll give an exception to the wildlife folks, the folks that are going to be watching over hunting. No, over the government, law enforcement, folks who we authorize to have lethal force. Now, those are the ones that Second Amendment is all about, so that we, the people, can rise up if we need to, if our nation, if our government gets too big for its britches and starts, tyrannizing the people. And so they either do not understand the purpose of the Second Amendment,